Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. This one is an insane back and forth, so grab some popcorn as we watch the Wood Elves of DaveyCrockett take on the High Elves of Parmigiano. We begin, as always, with talk of composition and deployment, paused because, as is good Wood Elf fashion, we have a massive Vanguard deployed force. So let's start with the Wood Elves. We have a Glade Lord in charge atop a horse, alongside a Spellslinger of Beasts atop a horse as well. All the way up front, Vanguard deployed, we have 4 units of Deepwood Scouts, hoping to get some damage done nice and early, a little bit of harassment, and maybe outrange some of the enemy range support, and then pull back into safety when push comes to shove. Then we have another layer of Way Watchers over here, more range support as these guys are able to fire away as well. And then we've got the War Dancers with Asteroid Spear on either flank, alongside the Wild Riders as well, who are able to push in and provide some support as these archers need to fall back into safety. They'll be able to dive in, intercept enemy forces. Then the front line, if we can even call it that, consists of 2 units of Eternal Guard with shields, and they are supported by another unit of Eternal Guard right back here, leveled up ever so slightly, able to dive in wherever necessary, so not really much of a front line. On the other side of the field, the High Elves as well, trying some clever stuff over here. We do have Tyrion in charge atop a horse, alongside a Lore Master of Hoeth on foot, and a Noble atop a horse as well. Then the front now consists of these 4 units of Lothern Sea Guard with shields, able to fire away with their great range, a little bit shorter than other archer units from the High Elves, and as you saw earlier, they are outranged by the Deepwood Scouts. Nonetheless, though, they are Vanguard deployed, so we'll get some shots in nice and early, and then we've got these 4 units of White Lions of Schrace right behind them, able to push forward when it comes time to get engaged. Then back here, we have the Dragon Princes looking for an opportunity to dive into melee or chase after Wood Elf range support, and then finally, all the way off in the distance, we have this wonderful unit of Illyrian Reavers, Vanguard deployed, hidden in the trees, hoping to push in when the time comes and shut down Wood Elf range support. So, with all that said and done, let's take a look at how this all breaks down. Right away, of course, both sets of ranged units looking to open fire, and these Lothern Sea Guard do have shields, so they will be relatively protected with their silver shields, and you can see just how little damage they take, and in response, take a look at the amount of damage taken by the Deepwood Scouts instead. So a lot of hurt being dealt there, and the Deepwood Scouts are forced to pull back into safety as the Lothern Sea Guard fire away, and you can see they're actually giving chase quite confidently, hoping to get some damage in, while off to the left over here, we do have these Wild Riders creeping forward alongside the War Dancers with the Asteroid Spear, maybe looking for an opportunity to dive in with some rear charges or flanking maneuvers, and now you can see over here the Way Watchers as well firing away, and a bit of a mistake over here by the Lothern Sea Guard. These guys have silver shields. They should never turn their backs to enemy range support. Yes, there's that unit of Wild Riders coming in, but these guys are large units, and the Lothern Sea Guard are anti-large. They have spears and they have charge defense against large. They should have stayed strong and steady, facing forward, getting those shots into their silver shields and absorbing the charge from the Wild Riders. So a big mistake over there by the Lothern Sea Guard with shields. Off on the left over here, though, you'll see the Noble is pushing in against the Wild Riders. He is anti-large and armor-piercing, so he'll do a good deal of work against the Wild Riders, and we still have these War Dancers with the Asteroid Spear pushing in, while to the right over here we have the Deepwood Scouts firing away at the various Lothern Sea Guard units, and the Wild Riders over here as well, pulling back into some safety, while the Flock of Doom comes in, an upgraded Flock of Doom, hitting this massive clump of Lothern Sea Guard. Great job trying to shut down enemy range support as quickly as possible. Off on the left over here, meanwhile, you'll see the Noble does dive into the Wild Riders, hoping to scare these guys off, forcing them to fall back, but over here, we do have the War Dancers with the Asteroid Spear diving in towards the Dragon Princes. Of course, they'll be able to do a great deal of damage as they are anti-large, so they push into the Dragon Princes, intercept their charge, and off on the right over here, again, you'll see the Lothern Sea Guard pulling back into safety. Terrible call. Take a look at how much damage they're taking. The focus fire from the Deepwood Scouts firing into the backs of these shielded Lothern Sea Guard means they're going to fall apart. They're at below half health already. Meanwhile, up front over here, these War Dancers with the Asteroid Spear pushing in to engage various units, as these guys as well, now the Eternal Guard, pushing forward to try and get frontline engagement started. The Dragon Princes over here forced to pull off to the side, and the Wild Riders give chase alongside the War Dancers with the Asteroid Spear. This unit of Wild Riders, meanwhile, find a way to circumvent that front line and try to push into the side of the Lothern Sea Guard. Wonderfully done over here. Beautiful charge, just absolutely decimating that one unit, devastating their will to fight and their health as well. Very quickly they begin to rout, and the Deepwood Scouts now continue to fire into the center engagements, trying to provide some support to a very weakened War Dancer with the Asteroid Spear unit over here. Meanwhile, Earthblood does go down, trying to keep keep these guys alive, trying to keep these Lothern Sea Guard fighting as the Wild Riders just pull away into safety and engage the front line over here. The Noble, meanwhile, chases after the Spellslinger of Beast. Good call there. You're trying to get rid of enemy magical support, while all the way off in the distance over here, the Illyrian Reavers finally show themselves, pulling out of the trees there, but I don't think the Wood Elves have noticed. They aren't doing anything in particular to respond, just yet at least. Meanwhile, off in the distance over here, you'll see the Dragon Princes are doing terribly. They're not in an ideal spot at all. The Wild Riders have caused a fair bit of damage, trying to pin these guys in place so that the War Dancers with the Asteroid Spear are able to come in and take care of these guys. They're at half morale, less than half morale, and almost at half health as well. The Lothern Sea Guard, meanwhile, up front over here, willing to fight and fire once more, while instead we get another Flock of Doom here, just trying to cause some damage and provide some support to the Eternal Guard and the Eternal Guard with shields. Over here, Prey of Anathema does go down on the Noble, allowing the Spellslinger of Beast to get away, and you'll see the Noble, again, just staring hungrily at the Spellslinger of Beast, but not able to do anything, and a lot of magical support going down over here as Earthblood comes in to try and provide some support to the White Lines of Trace as well, and provide them some protection from all that range support. And meanwhile, back here, these White Lines of Trace managed to push into the Deepwood Scouts over here, but look at this wonderful split by the Wood Elves, ensuring that these Deepwood Scouts get chased, but the White Lines of Trace get shot from all directions. So, terrible situation for the White Lines of Trace, and you can see they are falling apart pretty readily as they're giving chase. The Noble once more able to push in to the Spellslinger of Beast, and over here you'll see finally, I think the Wood Elves noticed the Illyrian Reavers are right behind them, so they're getting some shots into the Noble over here, trying to do a touch of damage and pulling away from the Illyrian Reavers. Not sure if they're in skirmish mode, which is causing their response here, or if they were actually ordered to move away. It might have been skirmish mode, because otherwise the Way Watchers would probably fire away at the Illyrian Reavers that are very quickly closing the gap over here. Meanwhile, to the right over here, take a look at the White Lines of Trace falling apart, standing still there, trying to give chase to these Deepwood Scouts, but giving up perhaps, and just taking a lot of shots as they stand there looking pretty. As always, that is a terrible situation, and in comes that massive flurry, dropping a lot of these guys' will to fight, and now the Illyrian Reavers, you'll see, unfortunately get entangled by the Glade Lord over here, so turning around, and all of them diving in here, and the Way Watchers now able to turn around and open fire into their backs and sides, hoping to do a lot of work, while off in the distance, once again, those Dragon Princes are completely devastated in a terrible situation, and in the center, once again, we have Flock of Doom going down, trying to provide some support to these Eternal Guard units, while over here, this unit of Eternal Guards managed to get through and is now engaged the Lothern Sea Guard. And take a look at the amount of ammunition the Lothern Sea Guard have across the board. Off in the distance, though, the Spellslinger of Beasts in a terrible situation as Tyrion, as well as those Dragon Princes, managed to just surround her completely, just absolutely destroying her day, and she does fall. In comes Earthblood as well, trying to keep these guys alive and healthy, particularly these Dragon Princes, but those War Dancers with the Asteroid Spear giving chase, forcing the Dragon Princes to move quickly or fall apart. In come the Spears, and they're not going to have a good time, but up front over here, you'll see the Illyrian Reavers have given up. They are routing, they're turning around and leaving, while these White Lines of Trace are trying to give chase into these Way Watchers over here, but the Way Watchers are having an absolute field day, just firing away, trying to take care of those White Lines of Trace. And meanwhile, on the right over here, the Dragon Prince is trying to get a wonderful charge, managed to get a wonderful charge, rather, into the Deepwood Scouts, but again, fully surrounded by all of that range support, and those Dragon Princes are taking a lot of damage, falling apart. They've barely killed any units, and now Tyrion using Foe Seeker to dive into the Glade Lord. In come the Dragon Princes as well. The Glade Lord in a bit of a tight spot over here, but manages to just use the Prey of Anathema on the Dragon Princes, keeping them pinned in place, and all of that range support now coming in, ruining their day as the Glade Lord pulls back, and the Way Watchers as well turn around and unleash a flurry of shots into the Dragon Princes. In come the War Dancers as well, just ruining those Dragon Princes' day, and they have done absolutely nothing before they begin to rout. They've managed to kill just 4 individuals, and they completely shatter and die. Now, Tyrion, though, giving chase to the Glade Lord here, using Feint and Riposte to stay alive, stay safe with physical resistance, increased melee stats as well, but in come all of those anti-large units, and in comes that range fire as well from the Way Watchers. Meanwhile, all the way off in the distance over here, these White Lines of Trace, once again, trying to pull into the Deepwood Scouts that the Noble is trying to keep occupied, but they're able to fire away still, as there are so many of them, and they are spread wide apart. Those White Lines of Trace are having a terrible time. Lothern Sea Guard across the board once again. Just take a look at the ammo they have left. Those guys have barely used their ammunition. Meanwhile, the Way Watchers and the Deepwood Scouts very low on ammunition instead. So that really tells you a lot about how they're being managed and how things are being targeted on the battlefield today. Now Tyrion decides to dive into the backs of these Eternal Guard with shields, hoping to break these guys and hoping to use Earthblood, as he just did from the Lore Master of Hoeth there, to keep these guys alive as those War Dancers continue to give chase. Now the Lore Master is on the ground on foot, so he's not going to have as much trouble against the War Dancers with Asteroid Spear. The Way Watchers continue to fire away at the Lothern Sea Guard, Guard, forcing those guys to break as those guys were responding as well. And once again, Tyrion now giving chase to the Glade Lord, and the Glade Lord pulling away, trying to stay safe, trying to keep a safe distance from Tyrion as she is at half health. And you'll see now Tyrion once again using Foe Seeker to try and close that gap, but the Way Watchers very quickly turn around, and they're now opening fire at Tyrion, hoping to drop that leadership from the High Elves. And meanwhile, over here, we've got the Deepwood Scouts just piling in on the Lothern Seaguard and the Lore Master of Hoth here as well, forcing the Lothern Seaguard to give up on the fight, trying to break these guys with numbers, because when it comes to quality, the Deepwood Scouts in melee don't really have what it takes. But over here on the left, the Glade Lord trying to keep her distance, still trying to stay alive as Foe Seeker is still active on Tyrion, giving chase, and the Way Watchers as well very low on ammunition. They have to make their last couple of shots count. Prey of Anathema goes down on Tyrion, and as he stands there looking like an absolute tool, in comes a significant amount of damage from those Way Watchers. A wonderful volley there. They are both now out of ammunition, and the Glade Lord is able to just turn around and pop shots off like a boss as Tyrion's morale and health drop significantly. He's very close to dying now, and that would be terrible for the High Elves. Already we have a shatter over here with the Lothern Seaguard, the Lore Master standing strong, still surviving and fighting, but the Way Watchers now diving into battle. Tyrion uses Earthblood to stay alive, or rather the Lore Master uses Earthblood to try and keep Tyrion alive, but he has shattered. The Prey of Anathema has fallen off, so Tyrion is now leaving and able to recover some of his health, even though the Glade Lord is firing away, and some of these Way Watchers are giving chase to try and take care of him. Beautiful birds flying around. Those vultures smell blood, High Elf blood, as the Lore Master over here as well, just trying to stick around and fight. And of course, he is better than everything he's engaged with, but he's outnumbered. And we do have, as a result, the War Dancers with the Asteroid Spear having a successful fight over here. These guys need to dive in as well, and you can see right away, as I say those words, these guys are sent in to engage, and again, just get that full surround off in the distance as well. We've got these white lines trying to get involved in the fight over here, but they are far too few to make too much of a difference. Over here, though, these Deepwood Scouts are being taken care of by the Noble, or in other terms, the Noble is being preoccupied by the Deepwood Scouts. The Noble should be sent in, trying to get some rear charges to help the Lore Master of Hoth get out of that situation, because you'll see now we've got these War Dancers with the Asteroid Spear being reassigned, chasing after the Noble, and then ultimately deciding better to stay off over here. I would actually have suggested sending the War Dancers with the Asteroid Spear after the Noble, because he is atop a horse, so he is large. Unfortunately, though, the Deepwood Scouts sort of rout at just the right time to free the Noble up from his earlier pinned state, so to speak. The Lore Master, though, in a terrible spot, very low on morale, just barely hanging in there, but in come those charges, uses Earthblood to try and stay alive, and that definitely helps morale, as you can see. Boosts morale, keeps him alive and fighting, while off in the distance, the Glade Lord has chased Tyrion off the field, now turns back and is trying to return to the fray, while the White Lines of Trace over here again, just trying to push in and close this gap, while the Noble as well diving in with a side charge here, trying to scare some of these guys off, throwing them back, throwing them around, but of course, these Eternal Guard and the War Dancers, everything nearby dives in on the Noble as well. He's in a very terrible spot because there are spears everywhere on the field, and the Noble then pulls away into safety while the White Lines of Trace try to dive in to the Eternal Guard with shields and the War Dancers with the Asteroid Spear, hoping to keep them occupied as the Noble sort of ping-pongs back and forth between these ranged units that he'll be very easily taken care of. But the Way Watchers now dive in droves around the White Lines of Trace, forcing these guys to rout. Again, these White Lines do not stand a chance just because of sheer numbers, while the Noble once again hit by the Prey of Anathema, pinned in place, losing his charge bonus, and now all of these guys can completely swarm him, drop his will to fight, drop his health. There are spears, there are archers, all sorts of units, but they'll be able to make quick work of the Noble either way. Glade Lord as well now diving in to provide some morale support as the Lore Master of Hoth is completely surrounded as the only surviving unit, because the Noble has routed, is very close to shattering, and the Lore Master as well very close to shattering, and just like that, in one fell swoop, both of them give up, and a Pyrrhic victory for the Wood Elves. An army of largely ranged Wood Elves that ran out of ammunition maybe 3/4 or halfway through the battle managed to come out on top over a more elite High Elf fighting force by picking and choosing targets wisely and by removing threats from the field early on one by one. The Dragon Princes were a complete waste thanks to aggressive Wood Elf maneuvers and a great ranged barrage. Tyrion allowed himself to get netted within range of a pair of Way Watchers, and by the time the Deepwood Scouts and Way Watchers were diving into melee, their adversaries were largely reduced in number, making for relatively quick work, though it was still not an easy day. If the Dragon Princes and Reavers were better managed, the battle could have ended very differently, and if the Lothern Seaguard were well used at the start, taking advantage of their shields and anti-large capabilities, they could have come out on top as well. Really, pulling the Lothern Seaguard away, showing their backs to range support is never a good idea. They have shields, they'll stay safe, and they have spears, so they'll be safe from enemy large units as well. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I do think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's great to highlight some amazing engagements from the community. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.